What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today I am talking about the 2.1 patch release for Orcs Must Die Unchained. There's a lot going on here, and some of the minor details I'm not going to go into specifics about other than things that broke, are likely to be fixed soon, and my opinions on the recent changes. I'll have some links in the description where you can go to the forum posts of all of the changes, as well as some additional changes that were found and not actually included in the patch notes, as you're always bound to find a few of those every time one of these happens, and that is basically in any game. But let's hit the relatively big things first. What broke? So I'm gonna just navigate over here real quick and point her out. So Bianca has had her damage nerfed much more than initially intended. It isn't something that is super horrible in the short term, but her cleave damage is currently reduced, and her slam it down ability, her right click, basically does less damage than intended. These are all going to be fixed most likely when the servers go down on Tuesday for the weekly maintenance. So expect a server maintenance Tuesday, and then we'll be able to accurately assess where she is then. So you're not going to see me giving any Bianca feedback after the changes immediately, although I think that she'll still be in a decent place after they fix those particular nerfs. She was nerfed a bit too far, but I think she'll still be fine. Now, some much more minor ones. Ivy had some particularly interesting changes. You'll notice that the Natural Neck Weaver and the Arrow Affinity Weaver have both had their second cooldowns changed to percentage cooldowns, or cooldown reduction, I should say. This makes them both slightly less effective when you stack cooldown reduction, as percentage cooldown reductions are linear and do not give as high increases as having the flat second cooldown reductions, just due to the way that the functions in the game work. So you'll be seeing a lot less reach roots and a few less arrows. The arrows aren't that big of a deal because I think the base cooldown for Ivy's penetrating arrow is 4 seconds, so by default that's at least a second off, and it'll diminish a little bit further for every other stacked cooldown ability that you have on. Other than that, Ivy's pretty much unchanged, and I think she probably has the slightest nerfs out of the bunch. Now, we also have Tundra, and Tundra is actually really interesting because most people had no idea how this worked. I was part of that crew until a short while ago, but basically Freezer Burn has had its description updated to accurately describe what it does, and previously it gave you a 2-second cooldown reduction on Flash Freeze, Tundra's epic skill, which instantly freezes a group of enemies directly in front of Tundra in a small cone. That would reduce the cooldown by 8 seconds if you also took Icicle Assault, and so in about 3 to 4 seconds, you know, counting the amount of time it took for the icicles to hit something, you could basically flash freeze things twice. So it's an incredibly powerful small area of effect crowd control ability, and when paired with Tundra's Ice Wall, it's extremely useful and very powerful, especially if you can keep up the mana to sustain it. So that was a very much needed nerf. It is still going to take place, but not be quite as powerful as it was in the past. You'll have to get off a few shots and not be able to consistently just keep enemies frozen. Then we have Dobbin. Dobbin had his Rich Vein, that is his tier 1 Weaver, reduced by 50%. So it initially doubled the value of your coin bags, now it increases them by 50%. This doesn't just work on coin bags though, it also works on coin pickups, so that is particularly problematic if you're used to Dobbin just being able to gain a ton of coin. And now keep in mind, this Weaver was never necessary, but it was problematic for a couple of reasons. One being that Dobbin was able to significantly like out-trap other people, especially in multiplayer modes, just by being able to acquire much more coin than your average character. And this meant that like things like sharing combos would not really work out too well. I mean, of course, multiplayer requires a bit more coordination if you want to perform well, but I think weakening this just a bit means that he won't be so exploitatively good in a lot of situations, but also it will still keep him strong because they haven't gotten rid of the coin bags. Now, that's pretty much it for the nerfs. There's a couple of things that have changed. This one I can't really call a buff or a nerf. Overall, I think it's kind of a buff, but Midnight's Prowl has had an activation cost added to it. So you'll have a 15 mana reduced from your mana pool every time you activate it, and the actual Prowl cost has been reduced from 13 per second to 10. Now, the Prolonged Prowl Weaver, which used to give you that cost reduction, has now changed to just removing the activation cost, which means that overall, if you take this Weaver, she will function exactly as she did in the past. And if you don't, you'll have to think a bit more about how often you'll be prowling. So, shouldn't be that big of a deal, but Midnight basically just had free mana anyway, and Prowl is the only thing that really even consumes any of her mana pool besides usable items. So items may not be quite as spammable, but being able to prowl longer initially is maybe a good thing for Midnight players anyway. After that, we have Cygnus. Cygnus, well, it's not much to show here, but he has had a damage boost on, I believe, all of his abilities. Either that or it's just his primary attack, but damage is going to be higher for him overall. I believe it's by about 12%. So that's going to offset the fact that his Lightning Rift no longer does the lightning like it did prior to 1.6. I still feel that the Mini Master trait seems to be underperforming, and I'm not sure if it's due to it having poor scaling or not scaling at all. Still need to experiment with that a bit more, but it's not a trait that I really see being particularly useful on its own. With the additional cooldown reduction added to Rift Shard, it has had its cooldown changed from 35 seconds to 30. It may be more useful, but nothing I'd be willing to bank on yet. I'll have to try it out, and if it's anything good, of course I would love to rave to you guys about it. Now, other than Cygnus, what else do we have here? My boy Bloodspike. Bloodspike has had a number of pretty significant buffs. There we go. Brutal Axe primary attack has had its damage increased by 16%, which is a pretty significant amount. Anybody else that was seeing a buff that large would probably be pushed into near OP status, except for maybe Max. Bloodbath hasn't changed at all, but Maiming Blow has had its damage increased by 10%. Now, since that scales with your Bloodbath stacks, that's a pretty powerful combination, and currently was probably his most powerful build. So they're increasing the strength of the best build that he had, and I wonder how that's going to play out in the meta of just characters chosen for things like Sabotage and how well people perform in survival. I'm pretty sure the survival was the reason that they did it, but it'll be interesting to see just how well he plays now. Now, other than that, Oziel has had just a basic 10% damage added to everything he does. None of his weavers or anything else has been changed, so nothing you really need to worry about as far as playing him goes, just that overall you're going to be pushing out some better numbers. Hogarth has had a 15% reduction in the mana cost of all of his abilities. Other than that, it appears that, and I may have not covered this change in the past, Feel Good gives you a flat 4% health regeneration per second now, rather than a flat HP regeneration as it had once done in the past, which is amazing because 4% means that being out of combat for a few seconds will give him a significant amount of his HP back. And he already had the largest HP pool in the game, which is the easiest to increase because of muscles. I've personally had over 4,000 HP with Hogarth on a few games, and that is a ton. Especially when you consider that some characters have about 10% of that on average, even close to level 100. So I think that's the majority of the buffs. Let's get into what's new. So I'm not actually going to jump into a game here just because there's a lot of things to cover and this is going to take a while anyway. But Sabotage has had its ranks stretched out, or I should say the MMR ranges have been adjusted so that you will see a lot more people in more expanded ranks, ranging from now into Diamond all the way down through Bronze. And I guess this list, there we go. You'll only see the highest people. You can click Find Me to figure out exactly where you are in this list, and it defaults to the top. Now you'll have to play 5 games so that you get your placement back, but then it'll place you wherever you best fit in that group. A new map has been added to Sabotage as well, which is the Falling Folly. Now this is a map that a lot of newer players probably have some issues with, so once you're into Master, I would recommend playing the map quite a few times to get yourself familiar with it. You know, once you get to 5 stars, start fooling around with, or I should say experimenting with the best ways to trap this map up to give yourself additional pathing, more time to deal with the enemies, and possibly setting up some crowd control and insta-kill situations, since by default I believe you have Stilt Orcs and Earth Elementals running rampantly through the map pretty much non-stop. So the more information you have, the better off you'll be when you're playing this. And as always, spicing up the variety of maps in Sabotage is going to be a good idea, as it decreases the chance that you'll get like really repetitive, monotonous games. In addition to this, there has been a change that I can't immediately show you, but there's a new Mercenary added into the camp. So there were 4 mercenaries previously: the Chaos Kobold, the Dwarf Priest, the Pride Assassin, and the Bouncer Bear. They have added the Knoll Breeder, who breeds these little teacup knolets, which are extremely tiny, cute, and very susceptible to becoming a plushie at some sort in the future for a purchase, which I think would be like absolutely adorable. But it throws a bunch of little tiny kobolds at you, kind of like the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons, and they gnaw at your ankles and slow you down. They come out in groups, so it will be a decent distraction in addition to, you know, dealing you damage and slowing you down. So melee characters have more things to worry about dealing with, while ranged characters will just kind of want to kite them and try to take the guy out so that they have fewer hazards to deal with while eliminating their enemies. Either way, it's definitely a good idea, and when the mercenaries are summoned in Sabotage, they should give you a call out to show which kind of mercenary you receive now, rather than just a random, you know, you have summoned a mercenary. Now, we should move on to quality of life things, and there's a lot of it. First, the premium shop is here, and there's a bit to explain about this. With the premium shop coming, the store deals have changed so that you never receive a tier 7 trap in the list anymore. It will only show you items that you have not capped. For traps that you have capped, all additional cards that you have for that trap are now converted into gibs. Any trap that you have enough items to max it out but have not maxed it yet, such as, let's see, pretty sure I have more than enough of this decoy, these will not be converted. So you really don't have to worry about those too much until you actually have the skulls to go ahead and max things out. Now, if you want to look for the premium shop, you want to hit the store and then premium shop. So I've spent most of my gibs, but there's quite a bit of stuff in here to start with, and there's going to be even more than likely added in the future, as this is an entire sort of prestigious system that you can use once you start capping your traps. And keep in mind, this actually takes into account parts as well. Parts now have a cap, and it should be, I should say, because there's probably a couple of mistyped digits in there where some items are actually lower than the number of slots available for them. A situation where you can have one of each trap part for every slot that exists for it in the game. So for coils, there are 9 slots, so you should be able to have 9 of each coil. But again, I think my cap was 8, and that should probably be fixed sometime when they actually make another pass through the parts. Now, these chests themselves cost 4,000 gibs. Gibs convert currently somewhere around 20% per chest on average. Like there's a significant range, and it's based on the rarity of the items you get. Epic items are about 250 to 300 gibs, while common ones can yield somewhere between 46 and 80. So everything in between those rarities is going to be in between those two numbers, and the lowest chest is probably somewhere around 250 gibs, where the highest ones will be about 1,500. So your best result is about 3 chests will get you another gibs or premium chest, and worst case scenario, it'll take you about 8. So, you know, the conversion there is a little off, but you have to consider the fact that what you're getting from here isn't just the chests, it is actually more items, currently skins and vanity items, which I'll go into in just a moment, which you will be able to add into the game. Now, the chests themselves will give you 2 items based on the category that they mention, and 1,000 skulls. So you will get 2 sets of chests, which I believe are only rare or epic from this particular chest, and you will get 2 parts and 1,000 skulls from the parts chest, and each of these are at 4,000 gibs total. So after you have exhausted those, or you no longer want them, you can buy the skulls and the vanity items and set those up accordingly. Now, not skulls, skins. The skins are just selectable when you decide to play the characters. Right now they have one for Black Paul, Max, and Gabriella. But if you want to take a look at the other vanity items, you have to go to your profile and then click Edit Vanity. Now, these are the avatars. Previously, these had to be selected through the Orcs Must Die website, orcsmustdie.com, and that has all been changed. If you look at this and you had been to the website previously, you'll notice that a lot of the avatars that people had are missing, and I'm guessing that they're probably going through and correcting people's avatars, the ones that are currently available, until they get that sorted out. The other avatars are likely to be added back into the game at some point, but right now they're missing, and I'm not quite sure how they'll be added back in. But any avatar purchased in the premium shop will show up here. There are also titles, and I'm not sure how these are going to show up, but likely it'll be through some sort of achievement system or feat actually taking place in the game. And then the backgrounds are these 2 default ones, either blue or green, and any premium ones that you purchase. The badges, I'm not quite sure what they'll be for, but they seem to go up in the corner of your profile and will be visible in your friends list. So, you know, this is all things that you'll be able to see here, and if you pop open your friends list, everybody will have the things that they selected visible, as well as their avatars, and it will be highlighted behind their name. So, you know, it gives a bit of flair to your friends list, so you can kind of see who's who, and that's a nice touch. Like having this be a little bit more decorative is definitely something that, oh, you can actually turn, yeah, that's going off. Boof. Okay, that's something that I've definitely wanted for a while, just being able to see more information about what's happening here. And geez, there are a lot of people on that friends list now. I'm not even sure what the maximum is or if there's a maximum, but that may need to get organized or have a search bar in addition to the add a friend. But yeah, that's really nice. Now, one of the things that you do get the opportunity to do is if you choose, you can cancel this middle quest, and it will change from winning 2 match-made survival games for experience to a chest for winning 2 sabotage games. So that was one of the things, because that sabotage quest was there, it was convincing people that they had to play sabotage to sort of take advantage of all of their quests. I think this is good that they put this back for newer players, since it's important that newer players get up to level 40 so that they have access to the best drops in the game, that being Rift Lord chests and them giving you 5 items rather than the lower numbered from the earlier difficulties, and access to, you know, all of the gear and traits that are available as well. That way they can sort of get onto equal footing with the more veteran players sooner. And then if you just decide that you can cancel that, since you get 1 free cancel a day anyway, you can change that to a sabotage chest and just go nuts. That way you can acquire chests as soon as possible, which is something that is going to be more important to players that no longer need to get up to level 40, since they're now acquiring the best opportunities for loot in the game. So, you know, really solid choice. I definitely applaud the devs for getting that done. And of course, you know, I'm sure the players will definitely benefit that as they can get more stuff sooner. So that's really good. I definitely enjoyed that. There's going to be some other things here. There's going to be some other things here that are going to be somewhat important for players to understand. Endless has had some balance changes. All enemies have 10% less health when you're playing solo now, as well as 5% less when you are in a duo team, 2 people. So that's a nice balance change. It will make it so that you don't have to necessarily go in with 3-person teams for the best results, and waves will be able to be reached higher when you are alone, which will give players access to the chests and the maps sooner and without as many issues trying to take care of the high HP enemies in some of the higher level maps where they are significantly tankier. There's a load of new achievements in the game now, and these new achievements will be marked with a star. The start achievements will offer you a reward for completing them, and these rewards are various things. They are an infinite scroll of the Unchained, which should be usable in both sabotage and survival, and you get it by using 200 scrolls of the Unchained in the first, well, no, in sabotage. That's interesting because I believe that Harmonia was asked this in a stream, and it said that you didn't have to do it in sabotage specifically. So it will be interesting to see whether or not that was implemented, or if they decided to restrict it to sabotage. Because in sabotage it would be much more difficult to actually get this to take place, since the selectable items are random, and you have to purchase these with skulls anyway. You can't just use them. They won't show up randomly in sabotage until you have actually purchased those in the store. Now, you'll also have the option to get sabotage only consumables like the bomb spell, swifty hose, kobold pups, and so on and so forth. These are all obtainable by meeting the conditions on the achievements, and this is something that was newly introduced, rewards for achievements. It's something that I personally advocated for, and I would be happy to see more achievements have things attached to them, including, you know, possibly some vanity items or other non-gameplay oriented rewards, or I should say not permanent like buffs to your account, not something that's always active and beneficial to you, but something that would either, you know, give you a little bit of flair or you know, another random consumable in Sabotage, which would be really nice. So that should be the majority of the changes for the game as is. I think, again, Bianca will be in a really nice place once they actually get the final tuning right for her and they unnerf some of the things that have been done. Bloodspike will hit like a truck. I mean, he already had the opportunity to hit really hard in some cases, but now he's going to be able to hit even harder. And again, I think a few tweaks could be made to Cygnus just to make some of his other things a bit more impactful, and to give his Weaver choice more consideration in different circumstances. Right now, I think that there are a few choices that are just absolutely powerful and overwhelm some of the other selectable options, and that probably needs to be looked at again. But of course, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I don't expect all the characters to be magically exactly where I feel that they should be, or even where the devs might want them to go in just a single patch, especially with, you know, more things being worked on in the background that nobody knows about. More maps in Sabotage is an amazing thing, and probably something that's going to be a continuing trend in the game. That way there's more variety, and players get a different experience as they continue to play the game and get the different maps. So they get more experience with all of the maps that are in there, as well as just not placing the same traps in the same way over and over again every game. The premium shop should be something that can be fleshed out in the future, and like I said, we'll probably have more interesting things added to it as time goes on. Orcs Must Die was released literally a month ago, so I think that they still have a ton of room to grow, and it will be interesting to see where the rest of the new features and game modes that may be added in the future actually decide to take the game. And these are really nice stepping stones. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any comments about this particular patch. I know there's a bunch of bugs and things that haven't been fixed, and those will be mentioned in the forums already as I look through the patch notes. Feel free to let me know what you think about the changes and how you feel about the way the characters perform, and any feedback that you can leave. Of course, I will put anything constructive or useful to the devs' ears. That way, you know, we might be able to get some interesting changes to happen in the future again. But as always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for listening. I definitely hope that this has been informative for you, and until next time, have a good one, folks.